And I know that this is old, and the reason why I know it's old is because I saw the ratings for this. This was, I think, 101st in the TV ratings. Holy shit, 101st? Is there 100 shows on?
Kind of seems like old school WCW.
It did not work. So I could say that who killed WCW? I could say it's Bill Watts or Kip Fry or Jim Herd. But the final bullet in the chamber belongs to Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff killed WCW. But I'm not going to do what I usually do because I know I get aggregated a lot about my thoughts about Eric Bischoff on YouTube. Sure. So let's see if Brian's going to cut the nice things I got to say about Eric Bischoff. Okay? Because I know I get a lot of flack about my thoughts about WCW on our YouTube, youtube.com. Look for Good Karma Wrestling. Here's what Eric Bischoff did well, Gabe. He moved it away from being a Southern wrestling-based promotion. He said, nothing wrong with Atlanta, but we got to get away from being the Southern-based promotion. Let's put it in Orlando and Disney World to do TV. And he thought the WWE's production is great. The production in Disney's great. We're going to put cameras there, a fresh crowd, even though they might not be familiar with WCW. It's Disney. Everyone's excited because it's Disney. That was smart. Because in center stage in Atlanta, it's like the same old people. Where's Ric Flair? Where's Ole Anderson? Where's my Gordon Soley wrestling? Rasslin, that's wrestling. They were looking for the wrestling. There was no wrestling. So they put it in Orlando. Smart, right? Just on the surface. Mm-hmm. Okay. So somehow Ted Turner says, all right, Eric, what do we do to go head-to-head against Vince McMahon? And, of course, Eric had no answers. Of course he had no answers. And Eric, out of his ass, said, well, we got to go head-to-head against WWE because we're on Saturdays at 6:05 Eastern, and Monday Night Raw is on 9 o'clock Eastern. And Ted says, well, 2 hours on Monday night. Give it to him. And, of course, Eric had no answers. He had to get a yellow pad like this one to find out exactly what he needed to do to get this better. So it was smart. 2 hours on Monday night. He had an adult theme, a reality-based show. And I thought that was different. You had to be different than WWE. WWE is still doing the toys and the cartoonish type of characters. And it was more adult-themed Nitro at that time. Hall and Nash in free agency. Hall, Nash, Luger, Bobby Heenan, Mean Gene, Hogan, all those people mattered for the renaissance of WCW. All those things were positive for Eric Bischoff.
So you decided to be positive there for Eric Bischoff. I don't know if you necessarily answered the question. I mean, you did answer the question of Eric Bischoff and then decided to sing his praises, which I did not see coming.
I'm the most unpredictable person you know. You know that.
Eric Bischoff killed WCW. By the way, here are the things he did that propped it up. And look, I don't think you can take that away. I think that he lives off those 83 weeks, maybe a little too much. And naming your podcast 83 weeks, a little too on the nose personally for me. But, and I guess he had a hand in this, but a different Gabe who chimes in, this is my answer right here. Wrestlers in charge of their own creative. Like, I think of the things that absolutely killed WCW to me. I think back and looking back on the clip shows and everything, two really stand out. One was Kevin Nash taking the cattle prod to Goldberg and ending the undefeated streak. Like, and Nash being able to defend it by like, well, if your gimmick's undefeated, then you got to get a new gimmick. Like, man, if that wasn't the time, like that, and the way it ended was just very strange, and he was way too involved in his own creative. And then it was a little more towards the end, when Jeff Jarrett just laid down for Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan just like he wasn't going to do the job, and they just decided to completely punt on their entire main events. So like Hogan having the creative control, and then the creatives going, all right, you don't want to play ball. Here's what we're going to do. Take your damn title and like just air all of your dirty laundry on a pay-per-view out in front of God and everyone. That was just a terrible way to do business. But I think ultimately the wrestlers having so much final say, and especially somebody like Hulk Hogan, who just historically never wanted to do a job for anybody, like that's ultimately what killed the company, because somehow, some way, they revived Hulk Hogan, made him cool again with the NWO. And by the time it got to the end, everybody was still sick of him, but he still thought he should be on top and be the champ. So I think it's ultimately the wrestlers who are in charge of their own creative and had that final creative say of, no, I'm not going to do that job, that ultimately killed WCW. Because once one guy does it, then another guy does it, and it just, you can't run a show like that.
You don't think I was going to let Eric Bischoff off scotch-free, did you?
No.
No, because as you know, there's two sides of the margin. I just pointed out the good things that why WCW had that success for 83 weeks. The bad side of Eric Bischoff and why he killed WCW, he'll always deny it. He feels like it was the Turner was one, no booking knowledge.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. That was something that, that I think kind of really ended up hurting WCW in the end. And just having that creative of, in and out, not trying to necessarily know exactly where you were going on a week to week. And they created NWO, and that really kept everything running for a long time. And look, I want to give credit where credit's due in terms of the different types of wrestling that they had. Like doing the cruiserweight stuff was obviously a success for WCW, but I mean, they lived off of NWO. And really, the NWO was the driving engine behind everything that led to them being number one for those 83 weeks. And when that, again, you want to talk about the lack of booking knowledge, when the momentum, and look, they had a hell of momentum, and the NWO ended up getting bloated and all that led to something else that someone else pointed out, the finger poke of doom, trying to like bring NWO back together because they had the Wolfpack and the Hollywood and the whole thing. And it got very confusing who was on whose side at different points in WCW. But when the momentum for NWO kind of ran out, then you needed to book more. And they just, the different creatives that they had just weren't able to figure that out.
No booking knowledge, letting the boys have the pencil. That means Kevin Sullivan, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan with his own creative. That was a problem. And also the massive ego. We've known coaches and players for a long time in sports that can't play with the lead. After having 83 weeks of success, we saw Eric Bischoff do? Bring his own motorcycle in the middle of the ring, lay on his Harley, and make it seem like that he was the king of wrestling. You recall this, don't you, Gabe? I mean, So my whole point is that even though I give him credit for some of the things, he had the last bull in the chamber and killed WCW because he had no booking knowledge. I've heard the stories many times from Eric Bischoff saying, "Hey, when Conrad Thompson on his podcast said, so what were you thinking about this angle or this angle or this angle? Oh, I was in the back. I don't know. This was really a Kevin Sullivan call. A Kevin Sullivan call. Or this is a Hulk Hogan call. Or this is somebody else that was in creative." The whole thing was killing me listening to this podcast, blaming Terry Taylor, blaming Greg Gagne, blaming everybody else except himself for the failures of WCW. And I saw that first episode, and a lot of it was about Eric and about the decisions that he made. He's the reason why WCW is down. People look at Vince Russo.
I was about to say, I was about to bring up Russo's name because I think he deserves some of the credit, not necessarily, I guess, or some of the blame, I guess, since we're saying killing WCW.
Yeah.
He certainly deserves some of it.